Hello. About 2 years ago, almost to the day, I got a call. I was about to come to a lecture like this on, I think it was Springwell, and I got a call to say, Vincent's been arrested and our offices are under dawn raid. Now, if I can find the clicky thing, it will become clear that I was in-house acting for Vincent Tchenguiz as his head of litigation. And that was the call no in-house lawyer ever wants to get. I start by apologising to those who came to our fraud breakfast briefing, because it's a very similar talk. But it was thought that it was a talk that would be interesting to a wider audience. So what do you do when you get that call? And I think what I said last time is you've got in all your packs quite detailed slides and also a laminate with the key do's and don'ts. And what I really want to concentrate on is what it's like in practice. And an example of that is nearly all the advice you get is get your investigators into a room, offer them some tea while you run round gathering your team. And anyone who's been in the middle of one of these dawn raids knows it really doesn't work like that. First of all, they've got their warrant. That warrant gives them the right to be in your offices. That's all they care about. But what you need to care about is, what do the words of those warrants say? Now, we had a situation where, firstly, you want to look at it for scope. What are they looking for? And anything that's out of scope, you can say, well, sorry, those files, those papers don't relate to it. So the more specific it is, the better it is for you. And you need to make sure your whole team knows about that scope. The second thing is, what is the location on the warrant? And sometimes we had multiple warrants for different locations. Now, in the main business, the building had been leased to different parts of the businesses, which were separate entities. And yet the warrant didn't take any account of that. And then you have a decision. We also had another place, which was, let's call it 2 and 3 Smith Street was the building, but the warrant was for only number 2 Smith Street. So you have a question, what are you going to do about this warrant that isn't quite right? Do you let them continue doing what they're doing and then later challenge it? Or do you raise an issue now? What we decided to do is we would just cooperate in terms of locations, because we knew they'd just run out to court. And in fact, we had a situation where they cleared a whole office in number 3 Smith Street before they realised it was in number 3 Smith Street, not number 2 Smith Street. And then they put everything back in every drawer, every room, and then had to go off to court and then come back and start again. So they also are aware of these warrants. But that's your first starting point, the warrant. What does it say? Now, I'm just going to jump to the police station. Because if, like us, you have someone that's arrested, that is obviously a key focus. You need to have a team or a group of people who are dealing with that one point. You need to get someone down to the police station. Now, person to person changes, and we had someone who is very confident, is used to speaking his mind, and the key thing for us was to make sure that he didn't say anything. And you're told, whatever you don't say may be taken against you, but in actual fact, when we look back at the information they gave in that interview in the police station, it was completely irrelevant to the later case. And we had 2 brothers, one who answered all the questions and our client who answered none, having given him the real strong arm. Do not answer a single question. We know you want to talk about it. Do not answer. It later came out all those questions didn't relate to the information that was put before the court to get the warrant. they just seem to be picked out of nowhere. And having not answered that, you want to keep your powder dry until you later on get a lot more information about what's behind this. And that doesn't come for about a week or two after you've had your dawn raid. And that is something to bear in mind, that the police are the people running your dawn raid and also the people running the arrest. And the SFO might be there, but there's often a disconnect between what they think they're looking for and the case officers behind it who have their theory. The next big thing is privilege. So we got there, I was the first to arrive, I walked in, I had of course left out my laminate, I'd trained everyone up a few weeks before, a few months before. Did anyone remember any of the training? Absolutely not. The first thing I was told is, sorry, you can't go in. I'm the lawyer, I'm the person you should have called first. Oh really? And that's the way it works. So we went up to meet the police, we got our warrant, and then we said, we're waiting for our external lawyers to come. Please can you wait till they arrive? No, sorry. We have to get on. We've only got a very short time to do this. So that's our first thing crossed off, ask them to wait till you arrive. But what we did do was say, well, what can we help you with now that can help you with your search that won't impact on the actual searching itself till we have our lawyers here? So what we did was we provided them with plans of the buildings, the different offices, which is a good point to kind of talk about offices. Now, what you want to do in terms of privilege, and I'll jump quickly to privilege, although we've done bigger talks about that and we can go into it. In basic terms, if the SFO police are clear that your documents are privileged, they won't take them. If it's clear that they're not privileged, then they will bag them up and take them. And those documents that are in a grey area, so it could be privileged, but they're not sure, they put in a special bag called blue bagging. And they say, we're not going to look at them, and then afterwards we'll have a process to decide whether they're privileged or not. So your aim is to keep as many documents out of either your blue bag or the main clear bags. If you can give an expectation that things are privileged before you start, you're starting off on a good footing. And by that I mean your lawyers' offices. Put a note on those doors, legal offices, documents legally privileged. Keep the offices inside there fairly tidy. And my office, which is quite tidy, all files, they spent about 3 minutes in. The only documents they looked at were in my in trays. The lawyer next door to me was one of those lawyers with piles of papers on his desk. Piles all around the room, nothing filed. They spent 2 days on his office. They went through every single paper, whether it was privileged or not, whether he'd just taken it, whether he'd actually been involved. Someone went through them, then they didn't agree, then they brought another lawyer to come in and go through those papers. So, expectations of privilege help. And if you are working generally on things that you want to keep, any lawyers who are present in a meeting, mark those documents legal advice privilege. If you are getting external advisors, we've now had the Supreme Court hearing that accountants' tax advice wouldn't be covered by privilege. Make sure you use your legal team to engage those advisors. Use them as a conduit so you're protecting your privilege. And then the biggest thing you are doing on the day with your dawn raid is making sure that you're man-marking those the investigators, and you're making sure that privileged documents aren't taken or out-of-scope documents aren't taken. So you need to have everyone in your team understanding basic privilege and being able to argue it with the external investigators. Which moves on to the next thing, coordination. You need to choose one person as a coordinator who is going to be in a main room, is taking the notes of what's going on, sending people out to the different rooms, coordinating with the external investigators. Now, I've just been told I've got 2 more minutes, so I'm going to jump to my key points that I wanted to raise. Press. You need to have some kind of press strategy, and it's not just a PR strategy, it's not just the press external, that's a big point. It's your internal investors, people who are investing in you and who are going to be worried, shareholders, stakeholders, employees who are all terribly worried about their jobs. Now, if you're a PLC or a listed company, that takes on a whole nother realm, because you've got to think about insider information, and when you're giving the information to the market at the same time as internal people. So that is really important. Preserve documents. The minute that happens, you've got to make sure across the company no one is destroying documents. I'd advise people keep as many employees away as possible. Just keep your core team. And remember that you need to cooperate but protect. This is the start, not the end, of a very long battle. And what happened in our case? Well, all charges were dropped against both Tchenguiz brothers. They won their JR and costs of 3 million, and the SFO was accused by the judge of sheer incompetence. And having seen the inside part, I'd agree with that. And they're now bringing a 200 million claim against the SFO, which no doubt you'll read about in the press. Thank you.